Welcome, everyone. Thank you all so much for showing up today. I know this is a busy time of year as we gear up for the 2024-2025 school year, so I appreciate you being here. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Sharon, and I'm a Senior Client Success Manager here at K-12 Insight. I will be your MC for today's office hours discussion, and while we're going through our housekeeping, I see some familiar names in the panelists. Go ahead and chat in who you are, where you're from. Would love to just hear from all of you. For us today, we have a few slides that we're going to share. We have some few faces with us. We're going to go through a few, then I'm actually going to take those slides down so we can focus on our panelists, not the slide deck, be hearing just from them. Just so you know, a few housekeeping items. When you came in, you were automatically muted, but that doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. So use that chat to share a comment, ask a question. You can also raise a hand if you feel as though your question would be better asked live. We can always bring you off mute. If I miss a question, I have Olivia from the K-12 Insight team behind the scenes with me. She'll make sure we interrupt and get that question answered. So definitely take advantage of this. This webinar is being recorded and will be emailed out to you tomorrow to rewatch and share with your colleagues. So now that we have that out of the way, you see some other faces with me today. These are our fantastic panelists who are joining us. We have Danny Clemens. He is a Senior Vice President of District Relations here at K-12 Insight, and he is the retired Superintendent of North Kansas City School District. We also have T.C. Reiser, the Assistant Superintendent of Special Education from Albuquerque Public Schools, and Brian Wall, the Director General School Leadership from Fresno Unified. I would love for them to now share a little bit more about themselves and their districts as a whole. So Danny, we will go ahead and start with you.
Well, thank you. Again, Danny Clemens, former superintendent of the North Kansas City School District. I was fortunate enough to spend 8 years in North Kansas City. And during that time, we implemented K-12 Insight, the Let's Talk portion of it early on. I think it was 2015, 2016, somewhere in that range. And it really made a difference for us as a school district and led to many successful opportunities. So I'm glad to be here today and glad to be on the panel with the rest of the group.
Thanks, Danny. TC?
Yes, hi, I am TC Reiser, and I started using Let's Talk as the district coordinator while I was in my previous position. I was the executive director of the service center for 3 years, and in that role, my team and I managed all incoming calls for support and complaints for our internal and external customers. We have a large district, so it is exciting that we now have a tool that supports district-wide communication to help us with our consistency of messaging, and that gives us some customer feedback.
Thanks, TC. And Brian, we'll wrap it up with you.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. Again, Brian Wall from Fresno Unified. We're third largest district in California, and we serve a pretty diverse population, Spanish and Hmong being some of the main languages our customers speak, so that's why Let's Talk and the translation feature has been invaluable. I was a former high school principal here, and then also instructional superintendent supervising secondary schools, and now we've just launched a customer service department, which I'm over, and so that's been a lot of fun, just implementing Let's Talk and using it as a tool to improve customer service in Fresno Unified.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for sharing a little bit more about yourselves, your journeys, your districts as a whole. For our conversation today, we're going to be chatting through actually two main buckets. First is our executive sponsor for Let's Talk bucket. We're going to talk about what is that, what does that mean for these folks who have sat in these roles or sit in these roles. And after that, we're going to hear from each of them with their tips and tricks for getting us ready for back to school so we can ensure a smooth kickoff. So first things first, what even is an executive sponsor? This is probably a new term that you're hearing me talk about today. At K-12 Insight, an executive sponsor in a school district is the individual responsible for overseeing key initiatives or projects within the district. So this person is not necessarily involved in that day-to-day of Let's Talk or even attending those regular meetings, but they do hold the authority to help make those critical decisions about renewal or adoption of new systems like our call center feature that just launched. A lot of times they also help bridge that gap between our main point of contact and the cabinet or the school board so that we make sure that everything is communicated and a strategic direction is well maintained. like I said, this person most likely doesn't attend every meeting, but they are informed in significant processes and challenges and milestones that are going on. So you might be wondering, what is then the difference between an executive sponsor and a POC, your main point of contact? The main point of contact for us is our day-to-day contact that directly oversees your implementation of K-12 Insights, the products, the districts, etc. The executive sponsor is the person in the district that is aware of the usage of our products or Let's Talk, and more of the decision maker on the renewal and access, etc. In some cases, especially if we have some smaller district here, our main POC can also be the executive sponsor. I actually work with a district in Nebraska that my main point of contact is also the superintendent, also executive sponsor. He's doing it all. So this will most likely be cases in smaller districts, but sometimes not. So now that we've heard what an executive sponsor is and this newer role, I would love to hear from all of you if you feel as though you currently have this at your district. So Olivia is going to launch a poll for us, and would just like to get a pulse on where everybody's kind of feeling and where they're at. And there we go. We have some coming through. Good. I'm seeing that most people are saying yes, they do, which is great. Great news that you're feeling as though you have that support behind the scenes. So love that. Thank you for sharing. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so we can now see the faces of who we are chatting with today. Let's see, Zoom's moving things all over for me as we're going through this. All right, let me exit out of that. Perfect. Okay, so now that we know what an executive sponsor is, let's actually hear from some. Brian, I'm going to start with you. When you started using Let's Talk, you were the main point of contact. You were living and breathing in this every single day. I know you and I worked together as I was helping you launch, but you've now moved into more of an executive sponsor role. I'd love to hear, how did that shift happen? And then now, what does your day-to-day look like versus what it did prior?
Thank you. Yes, when I started, I would say I still kind of have a foot in the day-to-day work, but when I first started, I was, we launched some pilot school sites and the pilot departments. So I was working with, developing the landing pages, training the topic owners and team members, choosing the colors for the district landing page and things like that. Doing a lot of monitoring too. We call it nudging here, like when maybe someone hadn't answered a dialogue, just contacting them, asking them if they need support and they need help. And so coming in every morning and doing that was kind of the day-to-day work that I did. And now as I'm kind of shifting over into that executive sponsor role, it's really more strategic actions. Like I'm working with a superintendent. Our superintendent has set a goal around CX scores and the average time to respond to a dialogue. So working with all department leads, all principals, so they understand that goal, getting them the data. I'm also liaison to our cabinet members, to our board members, and really getting them the data, let them see what's happening in their region for the board members. But also we've set a lot of goals around just implementation. We've created our own sort of implementation guide. So just working with each department, we've set up videos on how to implement each role, and everything from discovery level at the beginning all the way to advanced, where you're using the chatbot. So it's really monitoring that, but also I would say we're split into regions, 7 different regions, K-12 regions. So setting up the instructional superintendent that's over that region, setting them up on workflows, so they are the ones that sort of start getting their responses now when there's a low CX score that they maybe want to respond to, or a dialogue that hasn't been responded to, they get those. And so that would be something else that I do, but also just I'm the one working with the communications department and really setting up communication to our customers and our staff or parents, getting videos out to them, informing them, getting marketing, Let's Talk, so they know about it and are using it, and trying to increase the usage of that.
Wow, That's a lot that you got going on, but I also love that I heard you say, like, I'm now using the workflows in my advantage. So one of your ways that you're stepping out of that role was to make sure that you weren't having to nudge everybody to say, respond to your dialogue, or this is your low CX score. So by utilizing that, you're able to now kind of step away and work on those bigger things like those videos and communication projects. So thanks for sharing all of that. TC, I know your district just went through launching Let's Talk. You're newer and you're also in this implementing in multiple departments. So I'd love to hear how you got other department heads bought in, and how did you also make sure that everyone was staying on track? So this was more of a district initiative and not just a single department initiative.
Absolutely. So I was very fortunate that our new superintendent was our executive sponsor. So she was looking for a way to improve customer service and our district culture. So buy-in was easy for our departments. They needed to do what the expectation was of the new superintendent. But we were able to get started and launched a lot of departments very quickly in the first phases of implementation. It was exciting because as we were going through the process, I had departments reaching out to me saying, please put me in the next phase, or can you please show me how to log in now? So that's exciting. To help stay on track, I've worked with leadership and provided ongoing training and support. Our service center, I want to report, is rocking Let's Talk, and they've been very helpful in providing some real-time training and tips to department members that we're looking to work with customers. And even though I've changed roles, I still provide in-person support to our cabinet and department members. I did that this morning, for example. And we're still in the middle of implementation. I think we're in phase 4 and haven't hit our chat bot yet. That's phase 5. So onboarding is really happens very frequently, so throughout the weeks.
Awesome. Thank you. It sounds like you have a good system in place, that everybody's on board. It does help when you have that superintendent executive sponsor kind of moving everybody along. And just for all of you, I've mentioned this in past office hours, we now have an implementation team. So TC and her team are actually working directly with our implementation team to get those departments on board. So in the past, if you've been thinking, gosh, I would love to get tech on board, IT, communications, etc., but just haven't had capacity, we can now really help with that to make your lives a lot easier and be moving as smoothly as TC and her team are. So thank you for sharing that. Now, Danny, you were a previous superintendent in a district, but you were also the executive sponsor. And let's be honest, as a superintendent, you have a lot that's going on a day-to-day basis. I know that you were pretty involved, just like TC and Brian with launching, but once things were running smoothly, you were able to then say, I want more of that high level information, and you were more of that bird's eye view. What was important for you to make sure that you knew that your team was maximizing Let's Talk, but also meeting the needs of your district and the board when you were more stepped away?
Right. I think that's a really good question. I think the one thing I enjoyed most as a superintendent was our executive business review from our client service success person. I enjoyed seeing what we were utilizing and seeing if we were utilizing it to its capacity, right? Because sometimes when we first implement things, we just want to take a little bite and not the whole dish. And for us, it was about what are our continuing issues in North Kansas City, and how can K-12 help us support some of those issues. And I really enjoyed each time seeing how we would take that next step of K-12 Insight and become more mature. And it got to a point at the end of my career where I think we were talking about the nudge. Brian was talking about the nudge, where you really had that data and you could go back to your department heads, your cabinet members, and say, hey, could you give someone in your organizational structure a little nudge, or are we providing enough support for them so that they can get back with our clients? And that dashboard really helped us with that. And I think probably where I ended my career, it was significant with K-12, as I would look at our year-long data of what the emerging issues were, and I would make that a topic to review with the board at our retreat so that we could put that into our year goals of improving. So sometimes the board's clueless about what major issues the community wants to really hone in on, and bringing this data from our dashboard was so helpful to prove the case. We really do need to spend some resources and time in this particular area. And then when they would see the data, they would be like, well, that makes sense. I could tell them all year long and they wouldn't budge. But when they saw the data, it made it much easier.
I love that. And you're so right. It's not just that anecdotal data or like that loudest voice in the room that you're like, do we have this issue, or do we just have this one community member who's making it seem like it's an issue. So actually having that data to back you up seemed like it was very valuable and really helpful. I'd love to pause for a second. I know we just digested a lot, and see if there are any questions from anybody. I will head over and check the chat, or if anybody wants to raise their hand as well, we can get you off mute and quote unquote allow you to talk. Okay, I did see one just come in. Okay, we're wondering, I have a new superintendent, which we're hearing that a lot as they're kind of shuffling around the nation, and they're onboarding, they have a lot to learn, doesn't have a lot of time to learn. What are some quick things I can do to help get them on board and up to speed so that Let's Talk isn't one of those things on the chopping block when it comes up for renewal? Danny, I'm going to pass this one to you since you've sat in the superintendent shoes before. What would be helpful for you to know?
Yeah, and I'm not, my answer isn't because I work for K-12 Insight. My answer is truly about how it made a difference for me. I think probably 8 or 10 times since I've worked from K-12, I've had the opportunity to answer this question. And I talk to a lot of superintendents when they ask this question about it's a tool that helps you keep longevity in your seat. It's a tool that if used correctly, it'll help you communicate with your board, right? And as a superintendent, the key is to be proactive, to be in front of some of the issues. And what I think that new superintendents need to understand is this gives you that pulse. You can go look or work with your executive sponsor and see what are the emerging issues and how do you get in front of them. Is it a boundary change that has people upset, or is it a condition of a facility? And that gives you the ability to communicate on the front end with your Board of Education rather than them bring the problem to you and expect you to solve it. It's an efficient tool. It saves staff time. It's also very cost effective when used appropriately, but most importantly, it's a climate tool. It improves the climate or will help support the climate of a school district where your community feels like they're valued. And I think that's the most important part of why I appreciated K-12 Insight.
I love that, because you're a new superintendent. Anytime you're new in any job, you want to do a good job and you want to be able to show that you're learning and quickly adapting. And it sounds like as a superintendent, you can use this tool, like you said, to use that data, kind of see where things need to expand. And then you're being more proactive versus reactive with your board and being able to take that information. I think a good example of this is something that I want to add on that we've seen a lot of success with new superintendents and even existing superintendents is launching a Let's Talk listening tour. This doesn't have to be something that's just for somebody who's brand new. If you're not sure what this is, it's a way for a superintendent to gather feedback and hear from their constituents without being overwhelmed. We know that superintendents, a lot of times, if somebody has an issue, they're like, I'm going straight to the top and I'm going right to the superintendent. And it might be about something of like, your lawn needs to be mowed or upcoming field day. So this will help that superintendent not feel super overwhelmed with their email, their phone calls, or even those in-person run-ins in the grocery store. We would create a custom topic for a superintendent with this, could create a QR code that we can put on flyers or business cards. So if they are out at the grocery store, they can say, hey, thanks so much. Would you mind submitting this to Let's Talk? And that we can include a nice introduction message on that topic, thanking people, letting them know that we've heard and seen what they have to be shared. But on top of that, we're going to follow up with this and let them know where. It can be in a newsletter, in a town hall format, potentially a board meeting. I've even seen some superintendents take this to YouTube and give recaps in 90 seconds or less of what they're hearing. So it's something that can really be customizable for your district. I will share out materials on how to launch this if it's something that you're like, gosh, that could be really helpful for me and my district. Or you can also reach out to your CSM and we can help get this going for you. So switching gears a little, I want to just make sure. Okay, perfect. Awesome. Thank you, Bethany. Just wanted to make sure I wasn't leaving anybody behind. The countdown to back to school has begun. So we'd love to hear from each of you what your best tips are for gearing up for the back to school season. Brian, I know you're wearing a lot of hats and doing a lot. So I'd love to start with you and hear what you've got going on.
Well, as I said before, we've created different videos for customers. Our superintendent is in the video talking about Let's Talk and encouraging people to use it. One of them is going out to all of our staff, because as everybody knows, our staff are big customers for all of the departments. We are using text, email to sort of what I'll say blast out information about Let's Talk to all our customers. Mainly goes out to parents, so they're aware of it. That's one way we're getting it out. We have something that I call tights for sites. And so these are some expectation for every site, and that is connecting this to their social media. Also, at their back to school night, that they have to roll something out and talk to their community about Let's Talk. And we're giving them some ideas for that, but letting them be creative as well. One of the things we're asking everyone to do is use the text phone feature, and on their weekend phone and their nighttime, when they're not around, that will roll into Let's Talk. So all those messages are saved. So just a few tights we're putting together that we want all our schools to be doing as we start. We're appearing at different community events in Fresno Unified. We have backpack giveaways and school supply giveaways. So we're going to be at those and just giving out information about Let's Talk. We may or may not have a robot costume that kind of looks like Chatsy that we may be, there appearing in. So those are just some of the things. And the biggest thing is talking to everybody about so many of our employees, the first thing when they get trained, they say, God, this is another thing we have to do. But getting out to them how this is such a time management, it saves time for you and all those features. And so we're having little training sessions just about how this saves time for them. And, just being able to set up a template for frequently asked questions and different things like that. So we're having some seminars and some training for staff, what we call Let's Talk 201 for the folks that already know how to use it, but just how to be wise about it, how to be efficient, and what saves time for you. So those are some of the things they're doing at Fresno Unified.
I love that. And something I think that as we all get really busy, it can be easy to forget like how important that how and that why is. And so I love that you all are remembering that and really driving that in. And I also definitely want to picture this robot costume when you roll that out. So I'll be checking your socials, or please send it over so we can see this. TC, would love to hear from you. You're brand new to Let's Talk. What's on your guys' docket to getting ready for back to school?
Certainly. So if I were to share 3 tips, I would say the first one is to communicate change to your internal and external customers. Make sure that you share that your website looks different, share on your social media platforms. This is important because how you communicate as a district looks different. Our entire website looks different. So we wanted to make sure everyone knew what the changes were and what to expect. The second tip would be to provide ongoing support to your internal staff. So we need to send out our user tips and offer in-person support to help them meet their communication deadlines, just knowing that change is hard for people, right? And I think my third tip would be to celebrate the wins. Feedback from customers, an area that we didn't have before, and it's a win to even get feedback, even if it's an area of growth. So set your goals, train your people, communicate, and celebrate. Like I said, change is hard, but customer feedback shows that we're listening and trying to improve our processes.
I love that. I also love the share the win. I just had this thought of like, how great would it be if every cabinet meeting a 9 or 10 CX score was shared out with everybody to just say, here's like a moment of celebration and appreciation of what's going on. So thank you for that just reminder. Sometimes that can get lost. Danny, let's wrap with you. You have been a superintendent. What would you do and what would you recommend to be getting ready for back to school?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to share. I'll give you 2 old school ideas, and then I'll talk a little bit about Let's Talk. But the first one is, please make sure all of your marquee signs are mowed around, cleaned, everything's accurate on the sign, because it's where the most pictures will be taken on your first day of school. And I always love to give a reminder to particularly new soups to make sure that those look absolutely fabulous for our families. And then the second one is on the same line. If you don't want a bunch of Let's Talk questions, make sure your HVAC units are all, their preventive maintenance is up and they've been tested before the thousands of kids show up in your school. I learned that one from long lessons. But most importantly, monitor your Let's Talk within the next few weeks. You'll get hints about where your struggles might be, whether it be large class size or facilities that may need a little more attention. So if you just monitor the Let's Talk and are able to respond, you're probably going to find yourself having a great start to school. Thanks.
I love that. And you're spot on. I used to live in Colorado, and there was a year where Denver Public Schools had an issue with their air conditioning, and it hit the news and it hit it hard. So that is a great reminder. Thank you, team, for showing up and for sharing all those tips. Those are very valuable as we all navigate a new school year. As we wrap up today, I just want to make an exciting announcement of something that we have going on. If your district has conducted surveys in the past year, which I don't know a district that hasn't, our managed research team is now offering free consultations to Let's Talk clients to review your survey data. And then based off this data, we're able to make recommendations for your Let's Talk implementation. So if you are hearing in these surveys, it's been really hot in the schools, can we get our AC going, or where are your buses, or et cetera, our team can find those trends and help make this, turn this into your Let's Talk implementation. This can be, if you're an Engage user, this can be Engage. If you've been using Google Surveys, if you've been using Qualtrics, whatever you use, our team will take a look at it. So definitely take advantage of this. We're only offering this through August 31st. And again, this is free. This is no additional cost for you. So if you have any questions, you can definitely reach out to me or your CSM, or just scan this QR code and our team will be able to help you out. All right, well, I want to thank our panelists again as we wrap and get ready for our announcement of next month's office hours. Once again, we're going to be joined by some fantastic district partners to engage in conversation. This time, we're going to learn from them how they're using Let's Talk to streamline those efficiencies and get the most value out of the product. We'll have Vashon Hill from Plainfield Public Schools. They're going to be talking about their use of custom forms and workflows, which have helped them with everything from reporting incidents to sharing kudos campaigns. We'll also have Teresa Tanner and Trish Gray with us. They're from Spokane Public Schools, sharing how they've used Let's Talk externally to be filtering customer feedback and saving themselves and their board member time. So this was a really great conversation. It was fun to see these faces, to reconnect with everybody. If you have any questions, follow up, definitely you're welcome to stay on. You can always reach out to me personally, but just want to thank everybody for showing up and thank our panelists for being here today as well.